Imagine being stranded all alone on a deserted island, a place crawling with wild animals and enemies. How long do you think you could survive? But here's the real question. Could you keep your sanity in a place like that? And if you ever made it out, would you actually want to go back years later? Today, I'm sharing the true story behind the legend most of us have either read, watched, or at least heard about. This is the real-life adventure of Alexander Selkirk, the guy who inspired Robinson Crusoe. After you watch this video, don't forget to share in the comments what stood out to you between the real story and the book we all know. And hey, if you enjoy the video, please hit that like button. Thanks for tuning in, and let's jump in. Alexander Selkirk was born in 1676. He was the seventh son of a humble shoemaker in the Scottish village of Lower Largo, Fife. Back then, Scotland was still independent from England. The period was filled with chaos and uprisings, like the Glorious Revolution in 1688, which aimed to overthrow the king. So, Alexander basically grew up surrounded by disorder. His family couldn't really keep him on track, and he turned into a bit of a rebellious kid. He was known for his wild temper and constant fighting. Honestly, he was always clashing with someone, even his own family. His dad wanted him to follow in his footsteps, working with leather and fixing shoes. And as you'll see in a bit, Alex did end up working with leather, but not in the way his dad imagined. Anyway, life in the village didn't suit Alex. Things finally boiled over when he acted up in church and got dragged to the church court. He was found guilty and sentenced. With trouble piling up, Alex made one of the best decisions of his life. He signed up for a life at sea. His plan? To become a privateer, which was basically a legal pirate back then. So, what's a privateer? When countries were at war, they'd give sailors official permission to attack enemy ships and disrupt their trade. It turned an illegal job like piracy into something official. This let countries flex their power at sea, while also putting these rough and tumble guys to good use. This lifestyle was perfect for Alex. The War of the Spanish Succession had just started between England and France, so privateers could get rich raiding enemy ships and score some glory for their country. At just 17, Alexander Selkirk started his pirate life. He sailed around the Mediterranean and the Caribbean, attacking and looting Spanish and French ships. It seemed like Alex really loved life at sea. After 10 years of bouncing from adventure to adventure as a pirate, he joined a new expedition in 1703 at the age of 27. This one was led by William Dampier, a legendary English pirate with a seriously impressive resume. Before Alex even came on board, Dampier had already made history. He was the first to set foot on Australia's southern shores and had explored the northern coast of New Guinea. Compared to Alex, Dampier was a true veteran, and he'd end up having a big impact on Alex's future. On September 11th, two ships, the St. George and the Cinque Ports, set sail from Kinsale, Ireland. Dampier captained the St. George, while the Cinque Ports was handed over to a young sailor named Thomas Stradling, since its original captain died not long into the trip. Stradling wasn't exactly popular with the crew. As for Alex, he just couldn't escape the chaos. He got assigned as a navigator on Stradling's ship. Back then, marooning rebellious or disobedient sailors on deserted islands wasn't unusual at all. There are tons of examples throughout history. Usually the sailor would be left with no food, no gear, sometimes not even clothes. In a way, getting marooned was like a slow-motion death sentence for pirates and mutineers. Some sailors actually preferred to be shot instead of facing that fate. And for the ones who chose the island, sometimes the crew would leave them a pistol. So, if things got really desperate, they had an option. Halfway through the trip, Cinque Port's original captain died, so Alex got promoted to first mate and Stradling became captain. Maybe that's where the tension between these two really started. It turned out Stradling wasn't much of a leader. His harsh discipline made the crew resent him, and things got so tense that a full-on mutiny almost broke out. Dampier had to step in to settle things down. After snagging a few prizes, the drama started building again, especially after a failed attack on the Spanish port of Santa Maria in Panama. That hit left sink ports seriously damaged, so they split from the St. George and stopped at the Juan Fernandez Islands in September. Here, the crew tried to rest and fix up the ship, but before the repairs were finished, Stradling suddenly ordered everyone back to sea. Alex was not having it. He argued that the ship wasn't fully sealed yet, the kind of repair where you pack tar between the wooden boards to stop water leaks. He'd mentioned in another video just how important that process is. Alex insisted it was way too risky to leave early and said he'd rather be stranded alone on the island than sail on a ship that was bound to sink. But Stradling ignored his warnings and stuck to his orders. In the end, the captain always wins. But for maybe the first time, Alex was actually right to be rebellious and stubborn. Stradling abandoned him on the island with just a sea chest, then sailed away with his crew and ship. So, Alexander Selkirk found himself completely alone on this deserted island. Inside that chest, clothes, some bedding, a musket with powder and bullets, tobacco, an axe, a knife, a jug, a Bible, a few navigation tools, and some books. That was pretty much all he had. Because of the tropical climate, Alex's clothes fell apart pretty quickly, but he managed to sew new ones out of goat skin using a needle he made from a nail. He could even start a fire by rubbing sticks together. Honestly, after spending half his life at sea, Alex was used to fending for himself. He built a shelter out of tree branches, sticks, and long grass. But there was one big problem: rats. They kept stealing his food and bothering him at night. So, Alex came up with a clever fix. He tamed the wild cats living on the island and started feeding them. That way, the rats stayed away, and Alex even got himself some new friends. Remember that Bible I mentioned? It turned out to be a lifesaver for Alex's mental health. He never felt that close to his faith again for the rest of his life. The island, known as Isla Robinson Crusoe in Spanish, was shaped like a crescent moon. It had a long, narrow peninsula on the west side and mountains in the middle. The island was lush and full of resources. Plenty of timber, fresh water, goats, seals, and sea lions for fresh meat. There were also wild plums, herbs, and turnips, left behind by sailors who had stopped there before. Back in the 16th century, pirates and privateers used the island as a base. So, Alex probably thought a rescue ship would come within a few months. But the truth was, he'd have to survive over 4 years on his own before seeing another human. At first, those days were really tough, but after a few months, Alex started getting used to island life. If someone had told him that the ship he refused to board, because he thought it would sink, actually did sink, maybe he would have settled in even faster. Yep, Alex was right. The sink port went down off the coast of Mapella Island. Most of the crew died. Captain Stradling and a few survivors got captured by the Spanish and thrown in jail for piracy. So, if Alex had known about all that, he definitely would have felt better about his decision. As time passed, seasons, months, years, Alex started to become a true islander. Physically, he was doing all right, except for forgetting how to talk since he had no one to speak with. But he had found his routine, and life on the island didn't seem so impossible anymore. He had water, food, shelter, tools, and even clothes made from leather, just as his dad had always imagined. So, Alexander Selkirk was surviving on that island, somehow making it work. But here's the thing, Alex wasn't actually the first sailor to be stranded there. A few years before Alex showed up, a pirate named Captain Stradling had arrived on the same island with his crew to take a break. While they were resting, the captain sent one of his crew members inland to hunt. But then, out of nowhere, they spotted a Spanish ship in the distance. The captain had to leave in a hurry, totally forgetting about the guy he sent into the island. Years went by, and eventually Captain Stradling returned to that very same island. He was pretty curious if the man he'd left behind was still alive. especially since they'd seen a signal fire on the shore. When the ship got close, the captain thought the person who lit the fire must be his old crew member. Instead, he found Alexander Selkirk, dressed in wild-looking goat skins. By that point, Alex had nearly forgotten how to talk. He could barely get words out. Even though the captain guessed that Alex wanted to be rescued, he just didn't trust this wild, strange man at first. Captain Stradling was actually ready to leave Alex behind again. But then someone vouched for Alex, none other than William Dampier, who used to be the captain of another ship in the same fleet as Alex. Thankfully, the experienced Captain Dampier recognized Alex and convinced Stradling to bring him aboard. Just when it looked like 4 years alone on the island would finally break him, Alex got the rescue he desperately needed. Captain Rogers even wrote about Alex in a book he published back in 1712. He described how Alex wore goat skins, looked totally wild, and could hardly speak, but was in amazing shape physically. Once Alex got his speech back, he told the captain that he'd seen a few ships over the years, but none of them noticed his signal fire. At one point, 2 Spanish ships even anchored at the island. When Alex tried to get their attention, they just shot at him, forcing him to run deeper into the jungle. But after everything, he finally got rescued. And get this, once Alex joined the crew, their pirate adventures picked up speed. He was made second captain and proved super useful. After a few more years at sea and collecting loot, Alex finally decided to come ashore in 1711, taking home his share, 800 pounds, which today would be worth about 200,000 pounds. After all those years at sea, Alex went back to England and lived a pretty comfortable life for a few years, thanks to his hard-earned fortune. But after 6 comfortable years on land, it seems Alexander Selkirk just couldn't handle the calm anymore. So, in 1717, he went back to sea, this time as an officer in the Royal Navy. He did really well as an officer and even climbed the ranks. But, he was always in love with the ocean and the chaos that came with it. In 1721, Selkirk caught yellow fever and sadly died at sea. According to records, he spent his last years saying he just wanted to go back to his deserted island. So that's the real-life story behind Robinson Crusoe. Sold millions in dozens of languages and become one of the most famous novels ever. I hope you enjoyed watching and didn't get bored. If you liked it, please don't forget to hit the like button and leave a comment. There's been a bit of a dark cloud over the channel lately. Hopefully it'll pass soon. See you next time, and as always, take care until the next video.